is in the offing right now, especially when it comes to trade between Africa and the United States. Of course, a Trump presidency has been pro-aid, and we are now joined from City Center Studios by the Trade Principal Secretary, that is Dr. Chris Kiptoo. Good afternoon, PS. Did you expect these results of these U.S. elections?
I probably expected Clinton to win, but the American people have spoken, and we have to respect the will of the American people. Donald Trump is going to be the president of the United States of America.
So, PS, of course, Kenya and the United States of America have strong linkages when it comes to business, and that, of course, being issues to do with the trade. Perhaps from a trade perspective, what lies ahead now that we know Trump's foreign policy has really been trying to create the local economy back in the United States rather than looking outward?
I don't expect a very significant shift, at least in our relationship between, the relationship between America and Kenya in particular, and Africa in general. I still expect, just like the previous presidents that America has had, we have had changes in leadership, but we have maintained our relationship with the American people. So I expect that our bilateral ties shall continue to remain strong, and in fact maybe even grow even stronger. We already have the Africa Growth and Opportunity Act, which is really the policy for the U.S. In terms of how it relates with Africa on matters trade and investment. And the AGOA was just extended last year by another 10 years. And that extension was lauded by many people because it's much longer than the previous AGOA periods, because it brings more certainty in terms of doing business for not only African or Kenyan exporters, but also even American traders and investors. So I do not expect that the American law will be changed. I want to believe that the AGOA will remain for the next 10 years. And we have just come back from the US to attend the 15th AGOA Forum. And during that meeting, we began discussions on post-AGOA period. What will happen after 10 years in terms of our relationship with the US? And we are beginning already to discuss matters to do with free trade arrangements between US and Africa. So again, I really don't expect significant change. America imports about 2.3 million worth of goods from around the world. And Kenya exported last year about $600 million, which is as percent of our exports last year, which was about 6 billion, gives us around 7 to 8% of our share with USA. So USA is a significant partner, being among top 10 countries, and we expect that we shall continue enjoying that market under AGOA.
And just to pick your mind on this issue around AGOA, of course, there are job implications where we are seeing Donald Trump's policy touches really on creating jobs back home. And he's talking about creating close to 25 million jobs. And of course, we've seen a lot of concerns being raised around his policies around immigration, really. Perhaps, do you feel the immigration law could be counterproductive, especially for Africa, where we're seeing Kenya is having quite a substantial number of Kenyans working in the diaspora, and that being United States? Is this going to also be an area of focus for the days to come?
Of course, it will be an important area of focus, except that I think it's a bit too early for me to make a judgment of how it will be. I would rather we wait and see how the policy will be driven. I still expect that, and this national trade policy is putting together the various pieces of legislation and documents that relate to trade. We have made significant changes in the area of trade. However, they are all scattered all over, and we have decided to put together in one document. And this document is going to be presented to Cabinet for approval. It is the policy is focusing on ensuring that there is more coherence, especially in coordination of trade matters between national government and the county governments, given that the new constitution devolved matters to do with domestic trade, especially when it comes to markets and licenses. So that's going to focus on that to make sure that there is synergy in terms of how trade matters are going to be conducted between county governments and national government. It's also focusing more on how to deal with the ballooning trade deficit, which has been growing. Our exports have been growing at 6% for the last 5 years, while imports have been growing at about above 10%. And that has tended to increase the current account deficit. So we want to come up with an export strategy that would address the exports. We have identified about 7 sectors, with livestock being one of them, agriculture being the other. We have services. We have also new areas that have come up, like in the area of minerals and oil. And all these, we are going to focus a lot to make sure that we increase our exports. We are also focusing on trade facilitation matters. Already we have a National Trade Facilitation Committee composed of 59 key stakeholders to address issues of trade facilitation. It's also looking at matters to do trade remedies to make sure that we're able to remedy our country whenever we have cases of dumping of imports or products. And then we are also trying to address the big challenge that is affecting the retail sector. You are aware that there's been a lot of complaint from the suppliers that they are not being paid by the retailers on time. And this policy is trying to address by looking at the possibility of bringing in some form of regulation to ensure that there is more order in the sector. So there's a lot, again, and I think given another opportunity, we could come back to explain more to Kenyans on what is in this document.
And PS, just before we get your closing thoughts, we are receiving alert here that President Uhuru Kenyatta has congratulated the election of President-elect Donald Trump, and he is the second African president to actually congratulate Trump. We did see Tanzania's John Pombe Magufuli also making his congratulatory message. And PS, just to get your closing thoughts, moving forward, how will the Trump presidency play out in terms of trade ties between Kenya and also Africa, really?
You know, Trump has had very strong opinions about some of the trade deals that the U.S. has had. For instance, the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement, which creates a free trade area between USA and 11 other member states, which include Japan, Canada, Australia, and countries like Vietnam. And I think for us, we have had interest in that, given that we have preferential access under AGOA in the US market, and apparel, textile and apparel are our major exports to the US. In fact, as I said, last year we exported about $600 million worth of goods, with $381 million of that being apparel and accessories, related accessories, constituting about 65% of what we export to US. Countries like Vietnam are also very competitive in that area. They are already doing well in the US market. But if they were to create a free trade area, of course, such countries would probably are going to outcompete us. So there may be some indirect benefit that we may get if there will be a delay in the passage of the TPP. But really, I expect that, as our president has indicated, we are going to relate well with the US. It's an important market, and we will do our best to ensure that we bring continuation of what we have been having with the US under the Donald presidency.
Well, many thanks there. That is Dr. Chris Kipto joining us from our City Center studios. He is the Trade Principal Secretary, just giving us some insights into what a Donald Trump presidency will mean for Kenya, Kenya-US trade ties, really. Just to put it in a nutshell, he's saying it's sort of going to be a 50-50 situation where Of course, you're seeing Trump's foreign policy engagements looking towards trying to better trade ties across the world.